Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. We have got a great video today. I'm going to talk about 10 players who have tremendous upside in each round of your draft. The first 10 rounds of the draft, I'm going to help you prepare for your fantasy football drafts this weekend in 2020. I'm going to go round by round, 1 through 10, and tell you who I think is the player with the most upside. Upside being defined as outperforming their ADP. Every ADP has a specific point allocation that you should get based on that ADP. There is a sliding scale for it. You can Google it. You can look it up to see about how many fantasy points you should be looking at based on where you're picking in a draft. Now, there are also certain players, as we get a little bit deeper out of the first 2 rounds, maybe out of the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, where now the upside that we're talking about is guys that can, instead of being the wide receiver 22, the wide receiver 35, have a shot at possibly being one of the top 18 at their position, or maybe one of the running back ones, wide receiver ones, tight end ones, meaning in the top 12 at their position, or possibly higher in the top half of all of them. So that's what I consider upside. That's what I'm looking for in terms of this video, and that's how I'm going to be breaking things down. I hope that you guys like this video. If you do, please drop a thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me what content you want to see before we actually start our normal week 1 routine, which starts next Monday. I can't wait to get to DFS season. I'm still in the midst of drafting a ton of best balls. If you'd be so kind, drop a subscribe on the channel. Make sure that you ring that notifications bell so that you get notified anytime I drop new content here on YouTube. I appreciate you guys coming back. And let's get to the first player in the first round that I think has the most upside. And I'm sorry, I'm boring, but it's going to be Christian McCaffrey. If you look at how many points were expected, you look at wins above replacement, you look at any other sort of all-inclusive metric in terms of fantasy, Christian McCaffrey last year was the number 2 consensus pick. Some people were taking him number 1, myself included, over Saquon Barkley. And he provided you even more value than any other player pretty much in the first 10 rounds did, even though he cost the 1.01. Nothing has changed this year. Obviously, his coaching staff has changed this year, but you're talking about somebody who gets 95+%, or last year got 98% of the running back touches on the Carolina Panthers. Maybe this new regime changes that. Maybe he only sees 85%. That would still be like in the top 2 or 3 in the league at his position. And he contributes so much in terms of PPR with the 116 receptions on 142 targets that he got last year, as well as being very effective and efficient on the ground with a 4.8 yards per carry, 15 touchdowns on the ground, 4 through the air last year. A lot of this is sustainable based on his style of play. Also, considering how bad the Carolina Panthers defense does project to be this year, just like last year where they got into a bunch of different shootouts, which Christian McCaffrey, if they're playing from ahead, Christian McCaffrey probably had a big day and then is going to get to salt the game away with more carries, more touches in the 3rd and 4th quarters. Now, if they're playing from behind, he's just going to get the same amount of touches, but more of them are going to come through the air. 10 targets, a not unlikely occurrence for him on a week-in, week-out basis. More value projected for his pick than any other player being drafted in the top 12 of drafts this year. So sorry for the boring number 1, you should take Christian McCaffrey, but you should probably take Christian McCaffrey as he is the highest expected value player in the first round over his ADP. In the second round, ADP of 15.1 right now. Kenyan Drake solidly in the middle to front end of the second round. You might be able to get him at a value because he was walking around in a walking boot last week. He is no longer doing that. He's out of the boot. He is at practice, not practicing fully because they're just kind of resting him for the time the season gets here. Again, this is a player who, in terms of his total running back touches while on Arizona last year, was in the top 5 in the league in terms of touch percentage. He was in rarefied air, along with guys like Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Joe Mixon, all these dudes who were essentially first-round picks this year. But everybody's looking for reasons not to draft Kenyan Drake in 2020 and putting all these other players in front of him who didn't see as much of the market share of targets as he did for the final 8 games of the season for the Arizona Cardinals. This is a fast-paced offense. His inclusion in the pass game is tremendous. That was always viewed as his best skill in the NFL. He's shown that he can tote the ball 15 to 20 times a game. And if he's going to get 5 or 7 targets a game, on top of that, the PPR value is insane. His big play ability is off the charts. The chances that he could end this season as a top 6 running back at the position when he's being drafted, as I believe the running back 13, being drafted as an RB2, but could end up in the top half of the RB1s. The upside is undeniable here, and he's my top value pick to outperform his ADP expected value in round 2. Round 3, Adam Thielen is my top value get here, an ADP of 34.5. Going at the back end of round 3, and there's some great players here. Obviously, you're still talking about RB2 range. You're still talking about wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 range. But Adam Thielen is somebody who I think could theoretically, if he stays healthy, lead the league in targets in Minnesota. There's just nobody else to throw to. Yes, they drafted Jefferson, and Olabisi is going to be starting over Jefferson at wide receiver. They don't really have tight ends that command all that much volume of targets. Considering that he could get a 25 to 27% target percentage this year, or possibly higher, up into the rarefied air of 29 to 31%, that guys like Michael Thomas or old DeAndre Hopkins used to get. Not unrealistic to think that he could end the season, if he plays all 16 games, with leading the league in targets, which is what I look for most out of wide receivers. Obviously, we're looking for end zone targets, inside the 5 targets, inside the 10 targets as well. But volume is king. Adam Thielen can get that and end this season as a top 6 wide receiver, top 5 wide receiver overall. And there are paths to him being a top 2 or maybe 3 wide receiver as well. So upside is undeniable here at the end of the 3rd round for Adam Thielen. In the 4th round, you've heard me say this name pretty much every video, if not every other video. Terry McLaurin is in kind of the same boat. Round 4 is chock full of other wide receivers. You've got Tyler Lockett, I believe, is in the 5th round. DK Metcalf has a 3rd round ADP. There's a lot of talented wideouts here going in the 4th round. But Terry McLaurin, in my opinion, should see the most volume of all of them, as well as being somebody who gets targets in the end zone, which is key in terms of capturing as much upside as you possibly can. Those are the highest leverage targets for a wide receiver. Those are the targets that lead you to the quickest score. Obviously, it's a 7-point touchdown plus the yardage, 1 for the PPR, 6 for the touchdown, then however many yards it was. If you get targeted in the end zone, all you got to do is get that ball into your 2 hands, and then you get yourself 7+. So him being in the top 15 in the league as a rookie at that in that stat last year, and the jump that year 2 wide receivers tend to make, leads me to believe that Terry McLaurin is somebody who could end the season as a clear wide receiver 1, but being drafted as like the wide receiver 24 or 25 right now, with his ADP sitting around 47.2 all the way at the back end of the 4th round. In the 5th round, somebody who's fallen way too far before the injury bug hit all of the other receivers on his team. Zach Ertz is going in the 5th round, 50.4 ADP. You might have to nab him at the end of the 4th now, but his ADP is still holding at 5, so I've got him here at round 5 for my top 10 values. He is posting 90 catches last year on 139 targets. He's an absolute target monster. Gets targeted a lot in the end zone as well. One of the leaders at the tight end position in terms of end zone targets on the season. I've believed that Jalen Reagor was going to be a very heavily targeted rookie this year. Path to playing time was undeniable. Now he's going to be out for the first 4 weeks of the season. Djax is going to be there in week 1, but isn't really a guy who can get you 12 targets a game. He might have to early on just because of all the other injuries. And now he's battling like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. He's battling Greg Ward for targets, Zach Ertz. So the path to 10+ targets for the first month of the season every single week is definitely there. He's posted top tight end numbers versus all the other tight ends, right there with guys like Kelsey, right there with guys like Kittle, and he's being drafted 3 rounds behind them. So Zach Ertz right now with a 5th round ADP is a tremendous value with a great chance to overperform. And then when you add in positional scarcity, yes, there are a lot of other good tight ends, especially we've been accentuating some that are late 11th, 12th, 13th round, but none of them has a 90+ catch profile that Zach Ertz has and has sat on for the last 2 or 3 seasons. So he's my top value in the 5th round. 6th round top value based on ADP is Fuller. An ADP of 64.5 right now. which is, in my opinion, way too low. I've seen him go in the 5th round in many drafts, but if his ADP is sitting in the 6th round, he is clearly my top value overperformer in the 6th round. I love this Houston Texans offense. I like it. I liked it last year. I liked it 2 years ago. I like it even more this year, at least the pieces in it, for a couple of reasons. One, DeAndre Hopkins is gone. He's moved on to Arizona, so that frees up about 4,600 targets, plus or minus. There's a little bit of, you got to give me a little wiggle room there, but he was quite a target monster who soaked up 28, 29, 30% of the targets in that Houston offense. Now they're all up for grabs. They're not all going to go to one guy. They're not all going to go to Will Fuller. But when Will Fuller has been healthy, and he did play in most of the games last year, if he can stay healthy, and there's been a lot of talk about his offseason work, his trainer working on a different running technique with him, much like we saw from Zion Williamson in the break, to get him in a more correct running style that should lead to less stress on joints and muscles and tendons, which should theoretically lead to less injuries. Let's hope that that can come to pass, because with all the extra targets on this offense, and with as bad as this Texans defense does project to be, shootouts should be there available for us pretty much on a week in, week out basis, which opens up a ton of volume in the passing game and a ton of opportunity in the passing game. So we have the vacated targets from DeAndre Hopkins added to the shootout potential every single week in this offense. Easily pairable if you want with his quarterback in a stack situation. And if we go to the next round, my top value is also Brandin Cooks. Now he is coming off of a pretty bad season last year where he was maybe the 3rd option, maybe the 4th option if you include somebody like Higbee along with Kupp, along with Woods. He was the forgotten man in that Rams offense last season, as opposed to where he was the season before when he performed much better. Brandin Cooks, I think, is going to have a fantastic bounce back season here in his first season in Houston for all of the same reasons that I mentioned about Fuller. There's a lot of vacated targets to be soaked up. He has got tremendous talent both down the field and on shorter routes, something that is usually not attributed to his skill set, but it's certainly there. And with everything that I've mentioned about Fuller, Brandin Cooks has the same thing. You can clearly pair him in a stack or a double stack as well if you're playing best ball leagues, or for DFS purposes if you're thinking forward in terms of any of the weeks this season. Round 8, Matt Ryan's got an ADP of 88.5, and he's my top value get here. Now, usually I'm not going to include a quarterback in top value plays, but if you're playing best balls and you're looking, like I do constantly, and you're looking for somebody who's got the potential to get you 25 plus points on a week at quarterback, you've got a lot of the top quarterbacks in that. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott. You've got a ton of quarterbacks at the top. Kyler Murray, like everybody that's out there can do that, but they're going to cost you a 2nd, a 3rd, a 5th, or a 6th round pick. Matt Ryan has the same potential, especially on DraftKings, where he's a threat to get the 300-yard bonus for you every week. He doesn't have the rushing upside that those other quarterbacks that are being drafted rounds ahead of him have, but he does have that 300-yard bonus on a week-in, week-out basis because they just don't really rely on the run. And he's got tremendous weapons all around that offense, from Julio Jones to Ridley to Hurst, and even his backs can catch the ball as well. Gurley, very good out of the backfield in terms of catching the ball, even though the Rams didn't throw it that much to their running backs. He does have that ability as well. So the upside for Matt Ryan to end the season as a top 6 QB when he's not being drafted as one currently is there. And so for me, he's my top value in round 8. Moving on to round 9, I want as much exposure to the Chiefs offense that I can get cheaply. And right now, MECOLE HARDMAN is the cheapest option with a round 9 ADP of 105, about 106 right at this point. There is variance involved here. And maybe it's not variance. There's a big floor, or a big difference between his floor and his ceiling. If he only gets the amount of targets that he got last season, clearly he's somebody who, if he's getting you 2 or 3 targets, you're relying on big play and touchdown upside or kick return upside here. I personally think that he is going to see a lot more targets in 2020 than he saw in 2019. Whether it's due to injury, whether it's due to him forcing himself on the field, or whatever it is. To me, he is the cheapest option that you can get with the most touchdown upside. 47 targets, 30 catches, 6 of them turned into receiving touchdowns last year. The big playability is absolutely off the charts. His athletic profile, as we see here on playerprofiler.com, 4.33 speed, playing with the quarterback that he's got in Mahomes and the offense that he's in, where he's never going to draw all that much attention. And Coach Reed does a great job of getting him the ball in space where he can win. I think we're going to see an uptick in terms of his targets, maybe, hopefully, towards the 70 to 80 range. And if he can tick up to that, we could be talking about 8 or 9 touchdowns on big plays. The more you get the ball in this guy's hands, the better he's going to do with it. And they're going to try and find some more creative ways to get him there. Sammy Watkins is fine. I think MECOLE Hardman ends the season as the starter opposite Tyreek Hill. We'll see if that comes to pass. If it does, MECOLE Hardman definitely has wide receiver 2 upside here on a week in, week out basis, but he would require 5 targets a week to do it, and not the 2 and 2.5 that he got last season. So there is risk involved in this pick, but I'm willing to accept it when I'm picking my wide receiver 4 or 5 in this range. And none of the other wide receivers have the upside that he does in that range either. TJ Hockenson's going to round it out as my 10th round value. Second round tight ends do tend to take a bump. That's when they make that leap. It's hard to play tight end in the NFL. You got to learn a whole lot of new blocking schemes. As athletic as he is and as good as he is at actually playing the game of football, some guys are really great athletes who aren't good football players. Some guys are really good football players but aren't great athletes. TJ Hockenson has both sets in his skill set. He is a great football player who also profiles very well at the position athletically. He's had a year to soak everything up. I think that we're going to see his target share jump this year from about the 12 or 13% range of the Lions targets last year to maybe in the 16 to 18% range. That'll bump him up to somewhere around 85 or 90 targets with Stafford back. I like him a lot. I like this Lions offense a lot. Also very stackable. Galladay going in the 2nd. Jones going the 5th or 6th, Hockenson going in the 10th round with an ADP of 117.7, and then you take Stafford in like the 9th if you want to get a full team stack and give yourself the best opportunity to capture all of that upside in a best ball league. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate y'all being here. Until that next video, come join us on Twitch. See the shows live. That's where I record all these, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.
He's a legend.